morning. Ozzy, I'm glad you brought that up about the hangover, because I was noticing on the pictures this morning that there was a lot of beer and wine drank over the last couple of days, so I know I'm back at a sales conference. In the 20 years that I've been studying sales professionals worldwide, I can tell you that we all fit into one of four buckets. The first bucket is that some of us are competitive. About 40% of sales professionals that I work with, that I see, are competitive. And what I mean by that is that they're average. They close about 1 in 4 qualified pieces of business that are available to them. They hit quota about 65, 67% of the time. And they lose, on average, 50% of their base every 5 years. The next group of sales professionals that I see in the marketplace that I work with are what I call distinctive. Now, these are people that no matter how commoditized their markets are, they tend to close about 1 in 3 pieces of business available to them because they've delivered extraordinary value and they've made themselves or their products and services distinctive in the marketplace. So they're rewarded with that. And they're rewarded also by hitting their targets about 81 to 85% of the time in a given year. Now, they only lose about 30% of their base customers every 5 years. Now, the third group is truly breakthrough. Ozzy, I'm going to put you in this category. About 10% of the sales professionals that I see are truly breakthrough sales performers. Now, interestingly, they close the same number of qualified leads. Their closing ratio still hovers around that 1 in 3, so about 30%. But they hit their targets 100% of the time, and they do so by achieving, on average, 107% of their quota every year. Now, the reason for this is that they only typically lose about 5% of their base every 5 years. And what's interesting when we study why those people leave, it's of no fault of these breakthrough sales performers. They lose business only when their business owners retire, get bought, buy someone else, move, or die. Things that are completely out of their control, but only 5%. So their growth comes from protecting that base and fully leveraging their existing clients. So what's the difference? The difference is competitive and distinctive sales professionals go the old school route in protection. They literally hone in on one buyer and try to build a fence around them. Maybe you've heard that expression, building cages, building fences, corralling our customers. And they try to build defenses, or they try to protect their customers from the outside in. A truly breakthrough sales professional works in the opposite direction. They build emotional barriers to change by creating defenses from the inside out. So let's talk about why this happens. When I look at distinctive and competitive sales professionals, what I notice is this: they become complacent. And we call it account complacency. Now, I'm not calling them lazy. What I am saying is that they have lulled themselves into a sense of security by thinking that the person who made that initial sale is the right person to secure that sale. They say to themselves things like this: hey, they made the decision. They're the right one to keep that decision safe. They say, hey, don't worry about passing off leads to other departments. Just focus on your own knitting. Just do your own thing, manage your own targets. They say, hey, I've got a champion, and that champion is the CMO of the company. I don't need anyone else. Right? And there's 3 fundamental impacts that happen when you have that kind of thinking. The first one is there's multiple entry points inside an organization. I mean, what are we, 900 people strong here? Each one of you represents an entry point to a decision maker inside a company. And if you're focused only on trying to guard that one person, protect that one person, you've left yourself vulnerable. It's really akin to triple bolting your front door, but leaving your back door, your windows, and your garage door open. You cannot, as a sales professional in this marketplace, try to block from the outside in, because there's too many entry points. The second problem, or the second impact that we see, is you become myopic. When you're solely focused on a single department or a person inside an organization, you miss all the other opportunities. And those opportunities could be massive. I have a client in Arizona that's a chip manufacturer. They do components manufacturing. And one of the reps said, hey, I'm golden with this account because they call me when they need stuff. I don't have to sell at all. They don't go to bid. They don't go to tender. They just call me and say, hey, we've got a new project. And I said to them, well, what did they do? And they said, well, they use our product to test the marketplace. Well, what happens after the testing? Oh, I don't know. What we discovered is someone else inside the organization was in charge of the production, which was worth 10 to 20 times what the testing was worth in terms of project. And our sales rep had this myopic focus on that one particular decision maker. And over the course of 5 years, we figured had lost out over $100 million worth of business because she wasn't talking to other people. The third thing is, hey, let's face it, buyers churn. Tony, you might want to close your ears on this one. But the average lifespan of a VP of sales inside an organization these days is 13 months. So let's see. You've got a long sales cycle, right? I know you guys are all looking at each other. You've got a long sales cycle. So let's say it's taken you 6 months, maybe even 8 months to sell a particular executive on whatever product set you're selling. That person might only be there for another 5 months. Right? And when that buyer leaves, if you've done nothing to forge existing or new relationships inside that organization, you're out of luck and you're vulnerable. Now I know, some of you are thinking, hey, what about the fourth bucket, right? I started saying there are 4 buckets that all salespeople fall into. The other bucket we're not going to talk about because they're either too new to measure or so bad they're on their way out. So we don't want to talk about what their best practices are or worst practices. But here's the 3 impacts that we need to think about. And what we find with those breakthrough sales reps is that they're really using an account leverage strategy to transform or transition themselves from a single sale into account dominance. And they do that in 3 ways, which we'll talk about. But what they're really focused on doing is building new and existing relationships so they create this internal barrier, this internal defense system against outside penetration. So let's look at those 3 things right now. 1, they focus on building decision-making capacity and decision-making quality. So what I mean by that is this. Decision-making capacity is your width inside an organization. It's you saying, okay, who is affected by our products or potentially affected? Who is using our products or potentially should be using our products? Who has our products in their workflow or could have our products in their workflow? And how do I build out a matrix? The very best tool that you can use for this is a simple organizational chart. Mapping out that organizational chart so you know exactly who inside the organization across both departmentally, but as well internationally should be engaged with you and your team. Decision-making quality is the depth, right? Don't believe anyone who tells you to sell at the top and only at the top. You've got to build bench strength underneath that top decision maker, right? When I was selling to the US Air Force a number of years ago, I built bench strength around all of the US major commands. I walked into General Woodward's office in the Pentagon and said, hey, sir, all 8 major commands want to buy our software. He said, hey, Colleen, the last time I checked, they reported to me. And he was right. But that bench strength helped us to gain favor at the top ranks inside the US Air Force. What's important for you is that if that executive leaves, you've got allies underneath you. I work with a large shipping client out in Seattle. They're a Fortune 15 company. And they came to me because they had lost a huge chunk of business and they couldn't figure out why. They said, you know, Colleen, we had the chief operating officer on our side. He was our champion inside the account, and he left. A new chief operating officer came in, and what do you think he did? What's the first thing that he did? He wanted to do a vendor review, right? He said, oh, I don't know if I like what the other guy was doing. It's time to put my stamp on things. And because our client had done nothing to build allies either below that COO or beside him, he had no other executive saying, hey, you can't get rid of Shane. Shane is responsible for our customer satisfaction scores being the way they are. Hey, you can't get rid of Shane. He makes our workflow effective. Nobody underneath that COO was happy enough or knew enough about our client to say, hey, you can't get rid of Shane. He makes our life easier. He's bringing profit to the organization. So as a result, $1 million worth of business gone in 1 week. Faster than Aussie, you closed that New York deal, they lost. And that hurts, right? That's the call on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock you don't want. So building decision capacity and decision quality. The next thing is to focus on your Experian family. Using the tools that you have like SalesShare, for example. Because the last thing you want is to be the sole owner responsible for protecting that business. There's just too much. You're dealing with clients that are far too big. And so utilizing multiple points inside Team Experian. Because what happens is when you've got multiple connections, it's much harder for them to leave. They like doing business with you. Let's face it, not everybody can like you and you alone. They need different people. They need to know that if you go on vacation, you get sick, you can't get out to New York to visit them, you're still sleeping at 6 in the morning, that somebody else has their back. And those multiple relationships, selling multiple products to multiple people, the service, the implementation, support, executives to executives is critical. I have a client in Asia, a large shipping client, who said to me the other day on the phone, you know, Colleen, we have a long history of losing RFPs with our existing clients. I said, what the hell? I don't get that. What's going on? He said, we have our existing clients, we're doing spot orders, 1, 2, 3, 4 orders, and they decide to go to tender for these big multi-million-dollar contracts, and we lose them. I'm like, why? How is that even possible? He said, because our main competitor, when they get that RFP, their executive team, the divisional president, the divisional vice president, the divisional VP of business development, the worldwide president, if it's big enough, get on a plane and they fly to Japan and they sit down with the executive team and they figure out how to win. Our executives won't come to the meeting. And so our clients feel like they're being jilted. Now, in a hierarchical structure, like in Asia and Europe, that is absolutely unmitigated disaster. In North America, it's just plain stupid. But it's critical that we utilize all of their team resources because people feel loved when we are giving them those resources. So if we look at this graphically, if you look at the top right-hand side there, when you've got, and most distinctive or competitive companies behave this way that I see. When we've got a large number of Experian team members focused on 1 or 2 buyers, we're not salespeople at all, we're stalkers. And I know you have seen this because I see it all the time. We got 5, Experian executives sitting in a boardroom with 1 buyer. And unfortunately, you're probably all on the same side of the table, right? And you're staring down. So we don't want to be a stalker. Now, below that, when you've got a low number of customer contacts, so you're the Experian team person and you're focused on 1 buyer, and that's it, what you really are there is out of sight, out of mind. You simply don't have the bandwidth to cover the entire organization and see all of those opportunities. So this puts you in a very, very vulnerable position. 1 is the most dangerous number in sales. So if it's you and 1 other guy, you're not trying to save the world. You're not going to be effective. You're just vulnerable. Now, on the other side, if you are 1 person and your ego is getting in the way and you're saying, hey, I got it covered, right? I've heard this 1,000 times. Well, Colleen, the customer really only wants to buy from me. If you're trying to cover all of those bases on your own, then you're going to make a lot of errors. You're handcuffed. And where you're vulnerable here is you're forced to be reactive. There's absolutely no way that you can be proactive and initiate meetings to have conversations about client needs because you're constantly putting out fires. You're the go-to person and you've created this monster because you're getting calls all the time for every little thing rather than passing off problems, issues, relationships to other people in the organization and acting as that orchestra. In the top left here, this is where we have breakthrough customers. And what they're doing is they're engaging multiple team contacts, so multiple Experian contacts with multiple client contacts, and they're becoming insiders. It's really hard to get rid of an insider. It's really hard. You create an emotional barrier to change, and the conversation changes from you saying to the customer, hey, we don't want you to leave, we'll do anything we can to keep you, to the customer kicking, fighting, and screaming to keep you in their fold. And that's the difference between creating inside defenses as opposed to outside fences. The third piece here is to really engage what we call your secret sales force. So your secret sales force is that group of people inside your customer base who loves you so much that they're willing to put it on pen, audio, or video. They're ones who, even despite the fact their legal team may say, oh, you can't give a testimonial, they'll allow you to write an anonymous case study. They're the ones who actively refer you inside the account and walk you down the hall and say, hey, Colleen, you got to meet these people over here. And they make those introductions. Or the ones where you get a call randomly from some net new customer who says, hey, I heard about you from. That's your secret sales force. Now, if we were having a discussion about prospecting for new business, we'd be focusing a lot on this because this is the #1 sales tool in the market today, is using the words of your customers. And there's 3 ways that you guys need to use them in order to protect your base fully. 1, you have to use them internal to the company. Don't expect that your clients are going to talk well about you inside their own company. They forget. They got other things going on. You need to remind them of why they love you so much. And so when you're in meetings, you need to be sharing success stories from departments to departments, divisions to divisions, international to domestic, across the country. Right? I mean, you guys know what it's like here. West Coast, East Coast, you come together, and for the first time you think, wow, I didn't know we did that. Right? So you have to share those success stories internally. That really helps to stop any rumors, gossip, or negativity about you inside the organization. It also stops the anti-coach. Here's a rule for you. For every coach or champion you have inside a company, for every person you have inside a client that says, man, I love you guys, I can't wait to have this implemented, or I really want to see you succeed, there is someone who's saying, oh, I can't wait to get rid of them. Right? You know who that person is. They're the life sucker inside the organization, and you need to find a way to stop them. And you do that by surrounding them with their own internal testimonials. Now, you also need to use those here, right? And share them amongst all of the Experian family, like you're doing with those sales success stories, because they motivate and encourage people to look for new opportunities and to take them to their client base. And the third place you have to use them is in your net new business prospecting. Those testimonials will drive more people to you for the additional products and services that they didn't even know that you had. And it's the easiest way to show your customers what you can do for them in totality, instead of just saying, hey, we got all these great things. When we go to our clients and say, we're good because you need our marketing services, because you need our analytics, because this is how great it is, they say, well, of course you're saying that. You're the sales guy. You're going to get commission, right? But when we go to them with success stories that say, here's why our customers love using these, they say, ooh, well, if other people are saying it, then it must be true. So we need to use those. If we look at this in terms of a formula, then here's what I'm going to suggest that you guys do. The first thing that you have to do, of course, in any sales situation is build that business rapport. Right? Business rapport is when you have a relationship with someone where they say, hey, I know you, I like you, I trust you, and so I'm going to buy from you. Then what we need to do is expand that to personal rapport. And personal rapport is when I know, like, and trust you so well, one, I stop seeing you as a salesperson, and I start seeing you as an expert. An expert that I trust my colleagues with, and I actively refer you to people inside the organization. And when I come to you and say, hey, I'd love to meet your CTO, can we set up a meeting? They say, absolutely, what a good idea. That's building that personal rapport. Now we need to add to that corporate rapport. And corporate rapport is as simple as, hey, my manager wants to meet your manager. I think you really need to get engaged with our customer service group. Can I put you in touch with inside sales? Can I bring our analytics team in to talk to you about the success we're having over here? That's corporate rapport. So it's company to company. So what that means in terms of protection is the company, Experian is safe because it's not dependent on a single relationship to maintain that business requirement. And then we really multiply that when we add proof. Case studies, testimonials, use cases, referrals. When we put this all together, what happens is we create this emotional barrier to change. We have a fully leveraged customer base, right? That's fully protected, and we create breakthrough revenue and profits. You go as a sales rep, so let's put this in numbers, right? Commissions are where it's at. You go from being, let's say at best, distinctive, hitting your target 85% of the time, to being breakthrough, hitting your target 100% of the time at 107% of quota. What does that do to the money in your bank account? Right? Very simple steps to move from distinctive to breakthrough. Use internal customer success stories. Share the contacts amongst all of your Experian family, and build your bench strength both wide and deep. Thank you guys so much for having me today. My name is Colleen Francis, and I'll be around if you have any questions. Thanks. Hey, my pleasure.